caso, lo podemos hacer preguntas.
Sí.
Ya se está transmitiendo. Las preguntas durante mi ámbito. Perfecto, cuando quieran.
Sí, no empezó la transmisión todavía.
No, es que pone live, parece que han puesto en live directamente. Es decir, que quizá ya estamos en línea.
It's already live, yeah. It's been on YouTube now. Yeah.
Perfecto.
Clarissa, você já colocou no ar já?
Yeah, after the company who is helping us to manage, it's already.
Sim, professor.
Yeah.
Bom.
Perfecto,
So,
cuando quieran. Perfecto.
Ok. Então, estamos aguardando o professor Nelson, mais um dos nossos colegas, e a expectativa é que o Piquet fale até no máximo 9 horas, ele fique à vontade, até às 10. Né? Até às 10, o Antônio, logo na sequência, apresenta ele fala, e depois o Piquet, depois fazemos um debate. Se o Piquet puder votar bem, se não puder votar, não há nenhum problema, o debate se mantém. Ao evento, por ser internacional, a língua primeira que a gente está utilizando é o inglês, mas se vocês não tiverem facilidade com o inglês, podem também falar na sua língua original, não há problema. Tá bem? Então, Clarissa, assim que você der o sinal, então nós podemos começar, não há, de minha parte está ok. E acho que Antônio e Piquet também ok. Hein?
Francisco, eu tenho a minha apresentação, fiz em inglês. Mas se calhar por uma questão a gente está a ouvir em português, eu posso falar em português, não há problema. Fica a apresentação em inglês e eu falo em português.
Você escolhe, Antônio. Até agora, poucos têm falado em português por ser internacional e está sendo pessoas de outros países também participando. Se quiser falar inglês...
Mas se há pessoas que só entendem o inglês, eu falo inglês.
Não, também que entende português. Então, por ser internacional, a gente assim. Se você prefere falar em português, depois de gravado, nós vamos colocar legendas nas falas. Mas para divulgação posterior.
Está bem. Eu tenho a apresentação, está toda em inglês.
Ótimo.
Posso falar em português e em inglês fica a apresentação.
Tá bem, fique à vontade. Então, cá está, deixa-me ver, Nelson não chegou ainda, mas nós estamos... Bom, Clarissa, quando você quiser, você pode dar o sinal aí e nós começamos, tá bom?
Podemos começar, então.
Tá bem.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Clarissa Sais. I'm from the International Office at the Federal University of Paraná, and I'll be introducing the chair of this session, Professor Francisco de Assis Mendonça, who will be leading this session about the SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. He holds a PhD in Climate and Urban Planning and was a postdoc fellow on epistemology of geography, urban environment at Sorbonne University, and he was also a postdoc fellow at the University of Chile. He's a full professor at the Federal University of Paraná and is currently the Dean for Research, Development, and Graduate Programs. He's a visiting professor at the State University of Rio de Janeiro and have been a guest professor at the University of Sorbonne and Haute-Bretagne in France, and a guest researcher at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in England. He has published 16 books, over 100 papers in Brazil and abroad, and has supervised over 100 master's theses, doctoral theses, and postdoctoral internships. His main areas of expertise are urban climate, urban social and environmental issues, health geography and epistemology, and geography. Please welcome the chairperson for this session, Professor Francisco de Assis Mendonça.
Thank you, Clarissa, for this introduction. Welcome, everybody, especially Mr. Piquet and Mr. Lopes, Antonio Lopes, the two colleagues from Barcelona and Lisbon that will bring us this morning some conceptions, analysis concerning this ODS 11, Cities and Sustainable Communities. in our international or global conference organized by Federal University of Paraná in Brazil, in interaction with many institutions in around the world. This activity or this conference is organized by the International Agency of University, but is supported by CAPES, Brazilian Ministry of Education, that support the internationalization of research and post-graduation formation in Brazil. So welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to receive you all here, the participants, and notably the guests. This morning we will have, as I said, 3 colleagues from Barcelona, Lisbon, and from Instituto Polis, São Paulo. Nelson Sanches will arriving, and we will start with Mr. Piquet. I will introduce him. He has a very, very important, large CV. I want to read all his curriculum, but I would just situate his action to the person that don't know him. Josep Miguel Piquet is a telecommunications engineer, graduated from La Salle and Polytechnic University of Catalonia, master by ISAD, doctor in ecosystem of innovation by Ramon Llull University. He also holds degrees from Institute of Massachusetts Technology and the University of California, Berkeley, president of XPCT in Catalonia, vice president of APTA, also in Catalonia. He, in Spain, of course, member of the board of the EISP, International Association of Science, Parks and Innovation Areas, consultant in many institutions and enterprises, with a very large action concerning cities in around the world. I counted here around 15 countries around he worked, and in Brazil nowadays in 2 great cities. Beyond everything this, Mr. Piquet has the central line of his activity, the promotion of economy and society of knowledge with objective of consolidation knowledge cities in smart cities. So, Ms. Piquet, it's a very, very pleasure to receive you here. I pass you the word to your speech. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Francisco, for this introduction. I'm happy to be with you again in Brazil. You know that I have visiting Brazil several times in pre-COVID times, in COVID times, and I hope in the post-COVID times. And really, my connection with Brazil is deep because, as you know, and you say, I am the mentor of the Pack of Innovation in Porto Alegre. I have been working in Ceará, in Fortaleza and Eusébio, also in Maricá, in Rio de Janeiro, in Sao Paulo, in also Florianópolis, in Jaraguá do Sul, in Blumenau, in different places. That is a wonderful country. Let me tell you that you have the world in Brazil. And you have the diversity and the complexity of the world in Brazil. And that's the reason why I feel that you can use Brazil as a place for learning how can we transform this world. Because this world is about urban transformation, economical and social transformation. And this world will be and is nowadays a challenge of cities. We know how important it is the challenges that the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, from the United Nations was explaining in a clear way. And we need to understand how can we solve these challenges, understanding that we will start from the cities to transform our realities. And when we talk about cities, we talk in the dimension of the urban dimension, the physical place, but also in the economical and social dimension. And that's the reason why I would like to do my presentation about the case of 22AD, a case that perhaps for some cities in Brazil, they will be very well connected in terms of the reality that we had 20 years ago, and now how we transform 200 hectares of the old industrial district in a new knowledge-based district. I will share my slides, just talking about sustainable cities and communities, the 22AD case. And I will start with the situation that we had in Barcelona. You know that Barcelona hosted the Olympic Games in 1992. and we had about 200 hectares in the city center that were an all industrial district. Means that if you were walking 100 years ago, you found the textile revolution, the industrial revolution, the second industrial revolution in this case, with all the activities related with textile and so on. It was wonderful in that moment, but we cannot live in the past. We have to live in the present, building the future. And this is the challenge of every city, how we reframe, rethink, and transform our reality. Because this Barcelona is the Barcelona of the Romans. 2,000 years ago, the Romans were there. And they create Barcino. And you will find in Barcelona different layers. And the way of managing cities means that you have to keep the path dependency, you keep the path, the heritage, but also you have to write the future. If not, you are living in a museum. And when you are living in a museum, you cannot touch anything. And that's the reason why in the year 2000, the city decided to create and transform these 200 hectares in a knowledge-based industrial district. Why? Because we had after the Olympics, the connection of the city with the beach. In that moment, you know, we had a train line. It was very complex, the dialogue between the city and the beaches. And also we had challenges on the pollution in some parts of the river in the north of the city. It was good to see that after the Olympic Games and after also the Forum 2004, it was a forum of the culture, but more than that was a urban planning of transformation. The city decided to transform these 200 hectares in what? In a new knowledge-based district. You know where is Barcelona? This is a district that is just in the north side of the city, a district that, as I told before, was designed in terms of the urban planning 150 years ago. It means that we are using this matrix that was created by Cerdà for connecting the old Barcelona, the medieval and Roman city with other cities around the city of Barcelona. It was a plan for growing. Also, it was a place where you could see this kind of activities in the year 60, 90, until the middle of the last century. Was wonderful in terms of economy, but you can see that we have some challenges. First is pollution of this kind of activities, industrial activities. And second, you see big machines and people and some factories inside the middle of the city. What happened was that at the end of the 60s, 70s, these kind of companies were losing competitiveness. They were losing. Why? Because they were in the textile industry and they could not compete with other international competitors like China. And you could see, if you were working in the 60s, 80s, 90s, this kind of all images that were all buildings, plenty of nothing. Worse, plenty, not only with nothing in terms of economic activities, we had urban problems, economical problems, and social problems. Because when you don't find jobs, when you don't have jobs, the people cannot live. It was a big decision, and the decision of the city was, let's keep this zone, not just as a place, because we could transform this industrial land in housing. But if we transform 200 hectares in housing, where the people can live, where the people can work, or if we preserve only industry, where the people can live, it means the decision of the city was to create a knowledge district. It means the city understood in that moment that we had technology. In that moment, in the year 2000, we were growing in terms of the fiber and all new technologies. But the more important thing, we were discovering that the raw material of the knowledge-based economy was talent, and the raw material of the knowledge-based society was talent. It means society and economy has a common element. It's talent, it's people, it's they are the citizens. And the decision of the city of Barcelona was to preserve this industrial land in knowledge-based industrial land, but developing a district mixing activities. We were thinking that the best way to develop cities in this century was a place for working and living. It's what we say, the city in 15 minutes, the city that you can really work and live in the same place. It means that you don't need to commute, or if you need to commute, you have public transport. But the idea is, in order to reduce the impact of the pollution and also to provide to the talent the right place for working and living, we were mixing this kind of activities inside the building, inside the city. This is important because it means the decision was to preserve the industrial activities inside the city, but the knowledge-based industrial activities. Because we know that the raw material of the knowledge economy is talent. That's the point. And that's the connection between the economy and society, people. But not people just for working. I have been president of ISP, the International Association of Science Parks. Some parks, they have what? They have a perfect place for working from 9 to 5, but nothing happens after 5, or nothing happens in the weekend. There are places, cities that are a perfect place for living, but you cannot work there. It means that if you have a place in the city that is for working and a place in the city that is for living, you need for commuting everyday people. It is mobility, this is waste of time, this is pollution. The decision was a mixed city, a mix of activities. Very, very important lesson, because with that, we understood that we had to transform the city in an holistic way, in the urban dimension, in the economical dimension, and in the social dimension. It was also important. In the smart city strategy, the smart city strategy was the idea to use the city as a place with the urban planning, but with the knowledge infrastructures, but also the green infrastructures. It was important to define the quality and the quantity, the plan of infrastructures for developing a district, in this case, that was managing the waste and also the energy and other issues related with the urban dimension. When we talk about knowledge-based economy, we talk about the specialization of the district. What I mean is that we were working in the place that we understood that we should create knowledge-based activities. Knowledge-based activities are no pollution activities, because what you are doing is a place where the people can work in the IT sector or the media sector or the design sector. This is wonderful because it means that I can do activities with no pollution, with no impact inside my city. But also we didn't want to forget the important thing of the society. And society is not just a place for the knowledge workers, it's for all the citizens, and not only for the workers of now, also for the workers of the future. With all of that, it was a strategy, an holistic strategy in the urban, economical, and social dimension. If we go a little in deep on this model, this is the meta model of 22A, where you can see that it's a strategy of smart cities, the urban planning, management, infrastructures, and building. It means that how we work in the hard factors of the city, also in the knowledge city, how we connect science, technology, industry, and market. What we say and what we see is that we have to make a smart specialization. It means we have to develop activities connected with research, technology, industry, and market. Why we say research, technology, industry, and market? Because this is knowledge-based economy. We need talent, but also we need technology. Talent and technology are the tools for this knowledge-based economy and knowledge-based society. Talent and technology is productivity. Talent and technology is competitiveness of companies. Talent and technology is employability for the people that are living in the city. Very important strategy, the clusters, the specialization of the district, the specialization of the city. I am in the creative industry and the energy sector. I am in the media sector. What is the sector that I specialize my district, my city? Also, we were working in the strategy to combine the traction of companies with the creation of companies. Very important thing to connect both. we need to companies to use and to promote companies in the district to develop economy, but also we need to stimulate new technology-based startups for developing this kind of activities. But also the idea of that we are promoting to locate in order to connect to the world. This is very important. The cities are not just a local agent. They are hubs of global connections. And the city is like a local hub, but also it's a global hub. This is important because the companies that we were promoting to be in Barcelona were not just for Barcelona, we're working from Barcelona to the world. Very important because it means a change in the way of thinking in cities in a local dimension. The cities must be global platforms for global citizens. Very important because we see more and more young people that if you are not offering them a place to be global citizens, they will leave. And we saw this in Brazil, people that the easy way is to go to Sao Paulo or to go to Floripa or to Porto Alegre, and they can live and they disconnect with their reality, or Curitiba. Important idea to offer the talent the possibility to growth. And also in this way, the strategy of the city was to attract talent, to retain talent, but also to develop and create talent. Create talent means young people, then inclusive growth, to promote that the talent will be not just watching the new knowledge-based economy, also they were part of this new knowledge-based economy. Very important in terms of sustainability, because if we are not allowing the young children to grow, they will live. More than that, if we are not using the young people to work with us, we are not using them as a raw material of the economy, but also raw material of the society. Very important, this framework, because with that, what we were doing was to transform a district with the new knowledge-based infrastructures. It means inviting universities to be in the district in order to connect with the economy. This is good because it's no pollution, but it's knowledge-based economy. Also, we were developing a strategy of green infrastructures. When we talk about green infrastructures, I will develop later, but it's about water, energy, mobility, waste. And when we say mobility, you know, Barcelona is working a lot with public transport and also to promote the use of the common infrastructures for this kind of mobility. But also it's about housing, because if you want to develop sustainability, it's not only green sustainability, it's also social sustainability. And sustainability means offering housing, social housing for the neighborhoods, the neighbors that they were living before the transformation. A common place, you know, if you have been in Barcelona, you know how important is the quality of the public space, and the quality of public space, the quality of the common, and also the strategy of to be inclusive and this image of identity. Identity means that we have some elements that you know that you are in Barcelona. Let me go step by step, one by one, in all these dimensions. In the infrastructures, smart city. This is 200 hectares of transformation. It's about 4 million square meters in the city center. The city was investing about 200 million in infrastructures. And you will see that we were mobilizing a lot of privates that were investing and are still investing in 22@. The secret of 22@ was, in the urban dimension, to allow the privates to increase the floor of the land, at the end, to increase the floor of the buildings, but in order to ask them the 30% of the land. It was a win-win relation. We were asking, we're allowing the owners of the land, because all the land of 22@ was in hands of private people. It means that it was not land of the public administration. And with this land, what we saw that it was the perfect place for developing the knowledge-based economy, but we had to do incentive. The incentive was, okay, you can increase the floor of the buildings, but you have to give the 30% of the land to the city. Why? Because we didn't have green spaces, universities, and also we have social housing there. It means we were using the 30% of the land, 10% for green spaces, 10% for social housing, and 10% for universities and incubators. In this win-win relation, we discover how important it is to develop a strategy of connecting public-private partnership strategies. You will see that infrastructures, we had some infrastructures with a very clean and green strategy. The mobility plan, it was not only the tram, also the train, the metro, and also activities related with the bikes and other, also increasing the number of public and private parkings for private cars. In terms of telecom, we were developing all the fiber. And let me connect this. Fiber means digital. Digital means that we can be more green if we are more digital. This is very important to connect. And this is also for the debate, because if I can develop the digital strategies, I can connect these digital strategies with the green strategies. For instance, with the energy networks or smart grids, for instance, selecting the waste collection, we were analyzing the waste, and also the system that Barcelona is working is a process of recycling and also developing paper, all the elements that we can do in terms of a circular economy. Heating and cooling system, very important. We were using the temperature of the sea for reducing the temperature of the building. It means that we were using the thalassothermia. The sea is a temperature that we can use for, in this case, balancing the temperature of the building. And what we were doing also was the underground galleries. It was a strategy to put the streets under the streets. Very important, because it was an infrastructures plan created, it defined it in the year 2000. And now if you are walking the district, you will see all these infrastructures already done. Also, we discovered that we were creating something new. And sometimes when you are creating something new, you need to test and you need to develop pilots. That's the reason why we transformed the district in a urban lab, the city as a lab. And the city as a lab means that we had the opportunity to allow the entrepreneurs to test their products in the city. This is important because we are dreaming a new city. For instance, I remember the LED systems in the year 2008 as an innovation. Now it's in every place, but we were allowing entrepreneurs to develop solutions of lighting, of parking, of different solutions in a smart city. The good thing about that, it means that we were using the city as a lab. It means we were using the city as the first mile of global innovation, because the entrepreneurs could use our city as a place for developing pilot, validating the proof of concepts, and more than that, showing to whoever wanted to see the solution in the city and the street of Barcelona. It was a triple helix strategy with the role of the government, with public procurement, with the role of the universities, providing technology transfer and also using the city as a lab, but also providing for the industry golden reference and customer insights in the city. But the more important thing, that we put the city challenges in the center of the ecosystem of innovation. Very important, because it means that we can use our triple helix, the ecosystem, for solving the challenges in terms of sustainability in our city. In terms of economy, when we talk about economy, the city of Barcelona was working in a cluster strategy. This is the second secret of 2021. A cluster strategy means a urban cluster. We were developing a clear strategy connecting clusters, entrepreneurs, and all elements of every cluster in the same place. Why? Because we wanted to promote the interaction of different agents that were working in the same sector. And the promotion of the interaction, you can make events, but the more important thing is that in a daily basis, you can interact with the students, researchers, or companies that are in the same field. Important because we were connecting in the same place companies, institutions, universities, technological centers, and also entrepreneurs and so on. For instance, let me show you this project. In this case, is the project of media cluster. The media cluster was a challenge because we didn't have any company of media in the district. We had to create from scratch. And the strategy was first to invite a university to be part of this district. We were inviting the UPF, Pompeu Fabra University, to develop the campus, the media campus in the city. They create a wonderful work because they were developing the studies of computing, media, journalism, and so on. And they were transforming all buildings now in the libraries, in research labs, also new buildings for classes and also for classrooms and for professors. But as you can see, beside MediaPro. MediaPro is a corporate of media sector. The good thing about MediaPro, they were creating an incredible work of media plateaus, TV plateaus, and also companies related with the media sector. It means in the same square, you have talent from the university, you have technology from the research lab, you have companies, and also a startup related with the media sector. They could share the labs, and they were using in less than 5 minutes, not 15, 5 minutes, you can commute as a professor, as a worker, as a student, or as an intern, in the interaction between all of them. Very important lesson, because the strategy to connect in the same place means that we are promoting the interaction of the city, not only in the urban level, also in the economical level and the social level, because the Pompeu Fabra University was bringing to the district more than 5,000 young students. It was a social transformation. It was incredible because it was the possibility to transform. Nowadays, we have more than 25,000 students in the district in different zones. Important concept of mixing this kind of institutions. Let me show you in this case the IT sector. In the IT sector, we have companies like Telefónica, the system, and so on, the universities, technological centers, incubators like Barcelona Activa, and also the residents like Melon District or the Cibernarium, a place for training the digital skills for the professionals and society. Let me show you this slide in order to understand that this is 22@. And the lessons that we find behind 22@ is that we are creating a compact city. It's about density. Why density? Because you have density, you can share public services and so on. Second, complexity. This is not just a place for working. This is not just a place for living. This is a place for working and living. You can find in the same place, for instance, Victor is living here. He's parent of 2 children. He brings the children to the school. After that, he can work in Indra. After that, he can go for the lunchtime in the street. He can go, I don't know, or in the shopping center, or come back at home. After that, he can come back to Indra or can work as a professor in the university. He's commuting in less than 10 minutes all the profiles that they, in this case, Victor needs for the life or for his life. This is important because it means that sustainability also means, in terms of work, a place for working and living, because I don't need the car. I don't need more than the public transport or the walking for commuting my profile during the day. And nowadays, in COVID times or post-COVID times, we know how important is the e-work and telework. And this is also helping that some people is not just working every day. They can work from at home and they move 2-3 days during the week to the office for meetings with the customers or with meetings with people in my company. Very important concept on that, because we see in the urban dimension, the urban planning with a mix. This is a technological center, company, universities, housing. This is interesting, but also we see the economical transformation in terms of the media sector, the IT sector, and the social transformation. Because nowadays, 22@ is a top district in the city. It was the worst district in the city, and nowadays it's a reference. But in order to avoid the expulsion and the gentrification of this district, we were including social housing for inviting the neighbors to still live and also for the children of these families work in this new economy. We have also the energy cluster. The focus is in green energy, and green energy means all about solar, wind, and hydrogen in terms of storage. And this is important because we have some European projects like the Fusion for Energy and so on. Important concept on that, because we have companies, we have institutions, and we have universities like the UPC for developing that, and incubators and so on. Also, the health cluster, you can find in the health cluster a very interesting strategy. Let me tell you that this building is a very sustainable building with wood, but more than that, is just in front of the beach. This is a wonderful place for working, but also for watching what you can see in the in this case of the beach in the Mediterranean Sea. Important strategy to invite institutions, universities, also companies for related with the health cluster. And with that, the cluster number 5 was the design cluster, trying to combine the different activities related with the media cluster. Important because also we're following this dimension, the dimension of companies, institutions, universities, and so on. Important because now the design cluster is working in the circular economy design products in order to create products that are not creating waste at the end of the use of this product. After 20 years, you will find in the district more than 8,000 companies, more than 90,000 jobs, and a turnover of the companies every year is more than 10 billion, 10,000 million euros. And the number of investment is incredible. More than, remember that we were as a city investing 200 million euros in infrastructures, but the private, they were investing 2,500 million euros in the real estate and in the infrastructures. Very important in this for the sustainability of the project. We were using public money, but also private money for a common project. Let me tell you that this year of COVID, the 22 were receiving the 60% of the Spanish investment in real estate. It was incredible. The real estate developers were investing in COVID, in this case, in COVID times, in Barcelona in 22, the 60% of all this investment in Spain. Important the concept of governance, because if we want to develop strategies with sustainability, we really can promote this sustainability as the strategy also in governance. And we were inviting a triple helix organization for combining university, industry, government for developing this strategy. Let me go to the social dimension. In the social dimension, I would like to combine two things, the professional and the neighbors. And let me start with the neighbors. When you transform a reality in the city, you have to be sure that you are allowing the children to fly, and you can offer your city as a platform for them to fly. To fly means that they must be global citizens using your city as a platform for living there, but also for transforming grandparents and families in this digital transformation. We were working a lot in the digital district, transforming, for instance, what we say grandparents developing digital memories with young children, or helping what they say analogic immigrants or digital immigrants, families with digital children that they need to know how to coach their young children. But also the more important thing, we're working a lot with children in order to offer them the opportunity for growing and for developing jobs in the district. Very important concept because it means inclusive growth connected with the professionals. And the professionals means that we were landing a lot of international people in the district. This is important because we were mixing. You in Brazil, you have an incredible place. We have people from Germany, people from Italy, from Spain, from Portugal, that were growing there. You are a mix of the world. In this case, we needed to invite people from Germany, France, England, from different parts of the world that are now working in the city, and we were landing them. And nowadays, we have the international talent desk for helping them for this kind of activities. Very important, because this kind of activities means that when you are landing an international person, you need to connect them with your reality, not only with their own nationality. If you are German with Germans, it's with the rest of the community. This is important because with this strategy, what we did was to transform this district in a knowledge-based district, also thinking in talent, thinking in people, in young people, but also professionals coming from abroad, and also promoting a network between all of them. And what about the future? In the future, I would like to stress two things. First is the 22 and North. We are promoting a new axis of cultural and creative industries. This is interesting because what we do is to promote new activities. Projects like Palo Alto nowadays are developing cultural activities, but also La Escocesa, where we are developing new spaces for food labs and creative. It means that we were transforming all in buildings in new knowledge-based buildings, but also we're transforming all these axes, all these street, in this case, in a cultural and creative industries. Also, we decided to create a green and circular economy street for transforming this green, all the activities related with the green. This is a very nice strategy because we knew, we know and we knew, but we know now how important is the green strategies. And what we were doing was to create a green street, not only because you will find streets, also because we were inviting the real estates to develop new buildings with no carbon footprint, using wood, using different materials in order to reduce this impact. Very important concept this, because with that we are using this street as a lab for green solutions, for circular economy. Circular economy means not only waste, also circular means the buildings. If you are using a building, you will renew the building, and really you need to know what is the cycle of this waste during all this time. With all of that, I would like to open now a discussion or comments, Francisco, because I will not have time for the debate, but if you have any debate or question, I will be happy to interact with the audience or with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Piquet. Very interesting. These important examples in around the world in many situations to promote the quality life in the cities, notably by some structures and to the way to build a new way of life in the cities, the new cities. Thank you very much. I would like to know if you have just some minutes, 3 or 5 minutes, just to one question to complete this very interesting exposition that concerns the problem in as you work in some cities, not only in Brazil but in around the world. But in the context, when we find the great difference or the deep difference between income classes, for example, in Brazil, for example, poverty became strong again. It was very, very strong in the past, but we have like a wave, and now we are in one situation very important concerning the differential classes, social classes, for example, the poverty, miserability, and also criminality and security in the cities. Could you talk about this problem? It means Inclusion, poverty.
Yeah.
How could we think about future in the cities concerning poverty and criminality?
Yeah. First, let me tell you that we have now a situation that we can have another division of the society: the connected citizens and not connected citizens. It means digital citizens or non-digital citizens, and the smart citizens and non-smart citizens. Because if we believe in citizens, we have to stimulate the people to use the tools of the digital divide. This is important, and that's the reason why Barcelona Activa was developing the strategy of Cibernarium, that is a digital citizens house, where any citizen can learn how to be digital citizen. Because if not, we have a new division in the society: the people connected with the digital tools and people not connected with all this. It means not only not connected, it means that they will not be e-workers or teleworkers. They will not be citizens because they cannot use the digital information that is in the website or any payment, whatever. Important, the concept of digitalization, because it helps us to transform also the citizens as a digital citizens. But we know a lot about transformation, and transformation means, in the hard factors, a citizen with a house is a citizen that is not real a citizen. It means that housing is important, but housing is not just for families, it's for young people. We have in Barcelona now a strategy of residence for the students. It's also in terms of co-living or co-housing. We have different tools of different ways of creating housing. Housing is important. Without houses, you don't have house, you don't have life in terms of your personal life. But we have to be very creative on that. We can see, or we can think that everybody will live in a big house in the city center of Porto Alegre, and it's impossible. You have to develop a strategy of housing. Housing is important. Second is education. We know that education is a passport for the future, and you have to balance two things. First, the young people, young people, you can transform them with education in knowledge-based workers and knowledge-based society. It means education means how can you stimulate them in orientation, vocations, and all activities related with the studies. It means that in the situation of Barcelona, we were working a lot of STEAM, the vocation of science, technology, engineering, and math, but also vocations of young girls in order to connect them with engineering and other studies, because we know that we will have jobs on that. If we don't connect the people with the jobs, we have a problem of this future, in this case, generation. But for whoever is not young, but they are living here, we need to reskill and upskill, reskilling and upskilling. We have a very interesting program with Telefónica. The name is Escuela 42, School 42. That is a program for whoever wants to be in a digital world, not just for citizens. Whoever wants to be as a professional in digital world, they can start now, and in 6 months they can work. This is important to promote different ways of inclusive growth. Means promote inclusive work, and inclusive work means to allow them to learn. And this is the lesson. With jobs, we will create freedom. Without jobs, we'll create dependent people. And that's, from my point of view, and it's not only about jobs for others, also they can be entrepreneurs or they can create new things. For instance, Barcelona Activa is promoting a lot. Whoever wants to start a new company, they help the city council to any person to create their own job. For whoever is losing job, there is a program for training them for finding jobs, for not only finding, training to be ready for the job. It means that a public activity could be to train, or also in connection with universities, not just engineers and top PhDs, also people that in 3 months, in 6 months, they can develop the skills for working in some activity. My suggestion, when you have this division, is that you have to encourage this, the rich people happy. If they can invest in entrepreneurs, is the best thing that they can do. But let me tell you, poor people in terms of money, but they are people. They are smart people. We need to provide them the tools for allowing them to grow. This is about talent. We, as a society, we cannot waste any talent. We cannot waste any person. And the challenge of inclusive growth is educate them for a common purpose. The common purpose is a professional life and also a personal life. I don't know if I answer you, but the strategies that Barcelona was doing was first about talent, education. It means orientation, education, and and job opportunities, and also promoting entrepreneurship to create companies with not only university students, could be people from all the city. If not, we will not change. Another thing is, how can you combine both things? In the case of Barcelona, we were using the public space as a common space, because you can be rich or poor, but you are in the same street. And the street is the quality of the street is the quality of the common. And if you have a clean street with a place that you can mix, you will have a society. If not, you have not a city. You have a lot of citizens living in their own houses or their own golden jails, just living very happy to be inside the jail, in the golden jail, let me tell you, but not in the reality. I feel that if we find common places with security and so on, it will be the best strategy. This is my answer to your deep question, but it's I feel that we can debate 10 minutes more.
Yes, I
10
agree.
hours.
No, I agree with your mind, because I think to developed countries, as for example Spain and France or Portugal or United States, it's so easy to do. But when you are in a situation when society, the mind of society in general, are based on the division that higher class and upper class and low class, and not division of incomes, it's very difficult to do this action that you do. But it's a challenge, of course, it's a challenge. But if you can't transform the society one day to another, to a justice in general, we must improve some details, some aspects to arrive that, as you propose. I agree. I agree. Okay.
But also think about the entrepreneurial behavior. Sometimes, and let me tell you in a clear way, some families with all the resources that they need, the children are not entrepreneurs. Why? Because they have all what they need. They don't have to fight for anything. They have all the cars and food that they need. Sometimes young people with no resources fighting for the future, they can create new things. And we know now, and you know that in USA, in America, the entrepreneurs usually are immigrants. Immigrants mean people that they have to fight for creating new things. And this is the energy that they would like to use. And we have to use people that they want to create things. The challenge here is, how can you create the platform for helping them to create things? But more than that, to educate them to develop new things. That's, from my point of view, a wonderful opportunity. And remember, any person in any city is talent. Any person. A young person in a favela in Rio is talent for me. The challenge of our society is to develop an inclusive education and to allow them to grow. And sometimes you have the problems of your path dependency. If you have the environment that was not helping you for the studies, that's the challenge. How can we help and convince the families that education is the passport? The education is the passport. And how can you provide to the families the opportunity to grow with the children? And perhaps the parents cannot change the world, but for the children, the parent will do whatever they need.
In my mind, we need a new or another public state, public mind in our society. But the challenge is this: the mind, in a general mind, based on justice and division of possibilities, we can, of course, arrive at. But the proposition, your proposition, is very, very interesting. We must fight for them. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We'll be in touch, and we are happy to be in connection with you. And whenever you will be in Barcelona, please call me, and very happy to host you. Thank you.
Brazil,
and thank you,
also.
Francisco, Antonio, and Clarissa, and the rest of the audience. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
So let's continue our discussion, our debate this morning. And we have now with us Mr. Antonio Lopes from University of Lisbon. He is geographer, he's teacher at University of Lisbon. And in Lisbon, the University of Lisbon, he works in the Center of Geography at University of Lisbon, Center of Geographical Studies. Mr. Antonio Lopes works in urban climate planning, and he works in not only in research concerning climate, cities, geographical aspects, but in his work he established several times the interaction between universities, knowledge production, and the administration of cities. In many cities in Portugal, he works relating the advances in knowledge concerning urban life, quality of life in cities, but he tries with some important action, improve strategies, suggestions, contributions to the development of new life in cities, of cities in the present, in the future, concerning environmental parts of city. So I say welcome Mr. Antonio Lopes. As we told before, in opening this section, he can, or everybody can speak in original language. So Antonio told us he will present his presentation in PPT English, and he will speak in Portuguese. So Antonio, welcome. Thank you to be with us. Yours.
Thank you, Francis. Maybe I will try to speak in English.
It's a great.
No problem. Thank you very much, Francis, for the invitation for this thing, for this conference. It has been interesting, very interesting. So I will try to show my presentation. It's okay?
It's okay, very good.
Okay. So Francisco told me to speak about climate change, cities, and sustainability communities. And as he said, it's one of our concerned research groups, Zephyrus, in the University of Lisbon, Center for Geographical Studies. And I will show some, I will make more questions than, I have many doubts, as many of the scientists today, about all the things, uncertainties. But we also have many questions, and in the end of my journey, I prefer to make questions than other things. So we'll talk about firstly climate change in cities. This is my rope. We will talk about the Paris Agreement, the sustainable cities and utopia cities. Then we'll talk about climate service data. I think it's one of the most important now to generate information for our citizens. How can we build sustainable communities? And we will make some conclusions. So Paris Agreement was revised for 1.5 degrees Celsius. And one of the latest questions that make is this one: how close are we from this limit? If you look at this temperature, this difference in temperature, not temperature, but this difference in temperature from the baseline. So we are in a growing and very fast increasing in temperature. If you look at the left, with the left part of my screen, in 2000 we have about half a century to to achieve this goal. We can see here the projection of the temperature were rising, and we had about 45 years to tackle change. But in the last years, we have a big increment, increases in this trend, and now we are in 2020, and we will attain this not in 2045, but in 2035 maybe. So in the last years, we have a bigger increment of temperature than we thought initially. So we have this in temperature is rising more quickly than we thought in the beginning of the century, and we are running out of time. So three choices, like John Aldrin told us, the president of the American Association for Advancing Science, some years ago. I suppose it's not anymore, but he was the advisor of Barack Obama. And John told us that we have basically three choices for tackle climate change. We do mitigation, we can do adaptation, or we can suffer. We are going to do some of it. So the question is how much we are available to mitigate, how many do we have for adaptation, and are we prepared to suffering? So the mitigation we do, the less adaptation will be required, and the less suffering there will be, said Mr. John Aldrin. And I always spot these three choices that we have, because they are very important in our times. The World Bank made an estimate until the middle of the century for the adaptation. So mitigation, we know we have been in close relation with COP26. We had this in Glasgow in the last month. So mitigation, it was a little bit disappointing, the results. And about adaptation, how much will cost for approximately adapting the temperature of the planet to the 2 degrees warmer. It's about $70 billion to $100 billion a year, says this study from the World Bank. And about the in life and health of people. This paper in the Lancet, Planetary Health, from Forzieri and others, the increasing risk over time of weather-related hazards to the European population, tell us that in the middle of the century, we'll have about 2,800 people death because of this warming climate, and about 3,000 from climate and population change. So that will be increasing in the end of the century. So this is a big problem, because there will be multiple exposed to these especially heat waves until the end of the century. So we will lose a lot of lives, in this case in Europe, if we don't do nothing. So, like Francisco told, I work in urban climate. One of my topics is sustainable cities, and they are an utopia or not. We know that most megacities and large cities are in the globals. They are increasing very much. We also know that from the 2014, 2019, we had a shift in the population, in the world population. We have more people living in urban areas than in rural areas. So we are in 2020, so a growing city population. And cities are also places for opportunities, like Joseph told us, but also they produce altogether more than 70% of fossil fuel CO2 emissions. So we have opportunities and we have threats from these areas where most of the people now live in our world. And we also have some big issues that talk in the news. We have heat waves, we have droughts, we have damage caused by heavy rains, we have heavy pollution. So cities are places vulnerable, and as they are powerful, as is said here. So we must treat the city like a living corp, like a human life with urban metabolism. So urban metabolism is something, it's an approach, a very interesting approach. And like all items, city is a system, it's an open system. They have inputs and of and materials. And the big question is, how can we have a healthy body, a healthy city? Can we transform our cities from a linear metabolism to a circular metabolism? Mr. Joseph Piquet told us that the example of Barcelona is very interesting, but it's a very rich city. How we these transformations in the future? Are all cities in the world prepared to circular metabolism, to recycle their own products? And another important question is, are cities prepared to not only to consume but to produce? Because circular metabolism need to produce then water, food, and other in energy. Like the paper of Peter Newman, very important paper in 2006. He the extended metabolism model in Sydney, and they found a huge quantity of waste and CO2 emissions in Sydney. And for instance, et al. In 2000 in New York, they became to this number: 20,000 tons of food by day is wasted. It's a huge waste of food that it's not even consumed, it's just produced and thrown away as a waste, as a solid and water waste. And also it enters in the account to emissions. So we have another topic in cities, that is urbanity island. We have been studying urbanity island in Lisbon for at least 30 years. Cities are getting hotter, depending on the size, the population, on the emission, pollution, etc. But cities normally are hotter than the rural areas because of heat absorption and reduction of heat, because they lack green spaces, because they have many absorbing surfaces, and so this all produce urban Italian. Let's say that urban Italian, it's a paradox, because many cities in the North Europe and America is not a problem in winter. But in certain times, we can have some intensification of urbanite islands, and this urbanite intensity can be related with the with deaths in the cities. For instance, work urban heat islands in 2003 in Paris heat wave. We can observe the increasing temperature and the expansion of the area, of the urban area, that can be more intense than in normal conditions. So this was one of the causes of the increment of deaths during the heat wave in summer 2003, according to this research. So how can we tackle climate change? How can we prepare to our cities for these problems that I've been talking about? Is my third question topic. Now we have a new way to prepare operation, that is climate service and climate applicability of information, of research. Climate services, as today nowadays a roadmap in Europe. It's about information, but not raw information. And my topic is, what can we do to, let's say, to give citizens the right information, not only the data, but the right information to decide what will be our future, in our next future. So climate services is a novel research that refers to how climate information can be applied to our society. And can be applied to in very many ways. We have meteo climate services, we have urban climate maps. The rest of my talk would be about urban climate maps and risk vulnerability in the cities. And we made some scenario projections, but should think on territories, not in the global, but in the local, and the particularities of these territories where we act. So the three main questions that we pose we can make with this within this topic is how to transpose grid data to homogeneous climate risk units or climatopes. So we made some experiments to transpose this data, because we know meteorological observations insufficient in cities. We don't have enough observations in cities, so we must transpose this data to areas in order that for instance, in mayors can make the right decisions to their territories. Now we have good data sets, for instance, from Copernicus program, but all this data is made on a grid basis. So how can we transpose these grids to real life, to the real territory, to that they have valleys and mountains and etc. It's one of our challenges. So what kind of scales, what scale analysis and tools do we have, and what people, what would be information that we can translate to the people? It's just temperature, just humidity, or we must do much more than that. And my knowledge is that we should invest in bioclimatic assessment. That is the way that people can understand better weather and climate. So for instance, in this case, we present this kind of data that is transformed in a grid set. Here is Eurocordex Cordex for Europe, and we transform this information to local climatopes. It means to the areas that respond. They have the same response to the climate, to the low climate, and with this methodology, we can transpose this grid information to more specific and local climate. And we recently published work with the Lisbon metropolitan area to deliver this information to the public. So this is in the internet. This is the Lisbon metropolitan area climate change report that we made. We were working on this for the last 3 years in our institute with the local authorities, and after at the end we can have these maps converted to local areas. Here is not, I'm not presenting the climate ops this approach, but the units we have in Portugal that are the town halls, the councils, and the parish in Portugal. We have all this information available to the public. Public can count not only the present but the future climate, and not only temperatures and humidity, but the risks they really have in each territory. And here we have how for each one of these territory in the Lisbon metropolitan area, in this case cold and heat stress, we show these people as can access to this information to decide their own lives in the matters of temperature and thermal stress. So where we see here for each of these in this is the quantity of high heat stress that we'll have in the hot season in Lisbon metropolitan area. People here, not only common people, but technicians in the local authorities can have a prediction of how heat stress will be increased in each one of the regions. So my fourth question is, can we build sustainable communities? And we need some action. And we had a project, Climate in My Neighborhood, o Clima do Meu Bairro, that is the transition from something that is not understandable by common persons to individual action to face climate change. So we have beautiful examples. The first one, very known, was one of the first was in Freiburg on your left, where they create a community that was self-sustainable. They have a sustainable urban development. They had their own systems to produce energy and to treat the waste. Then we have another regions that follow these concepts. For instance, Besançon in the region of Paris, and also in Copenhagen, we have this climate resilient neighborhood that is being built on. So we have many examples, good examples, but can we address people to these examples? And one of the projects that we have been following is in Berlin, the Kies Klima, and a very interesting example because this is a neighborhood, Brunnenstraße in Berlin, where we can hear is people getting together from in a period of they join together and they discuss what they do want for their own places where they live. So this is a participative project that the people decide what they want to do. So this is very interesting because this participation is the best way, from my opinion, to implement climate change adaptations. Do we want trees? Do we measure weather? Can we monitor our climate? How do we teach children? And especially what findings that we can have transfer to other districts. We had an experiment in Lisbon. I present here an example of one of my students. We try in Bairro de Alvalade in Lisboa. It's in the northern part of the city, near the air. We confront people with the present situation, with not only with the temperature, but with the physiological equivalent temperature. So what people felt, we explained to people what is this index, and we made some projections for the future in a microclimate environment, and we use Facebook and the Google questionnaire to question if they are willing to change their lives in of what they see here in these maps. So we have here modeling thing from actual. I talk about PET, but it's UTCI, Universal Thermoclimate Index. So we face people, and we expect that this color were for a normal situation, this neighbor in summer, we always around 43 degrees, and we ask them if they are in front of this scenario, are they willing to change their lives? And most of the people were sensitive for these questions. More the women than the men. Is interesting, these results. But most of the people start to engage on this neighbor. This neighbor it's a green neighbor, not a gray neighbor, but they start to ask questions about what can we do, or what can we do in the next years. This is an example that we have been working in Lisbon, Heat Waves project, and urban climate maps identification in Lisbon. So this work was for the Lisbon municipality. We have the identification of these heat waves in some urban heat island patterns in Lisbon. So now we have been working on this for the last 30 years or 35 years, like I told you, with Professor Maria João Prado. But now we have more detailed information about not only the general urban heat patterns and daily cycles of these patterns, but also a very detailed information about the weather types that we had in Lisbon, and we can identify the areas and the time that we need to intervene. For instance, here in these three slides, these three figures that we have here, in the months, summer months, we have the end of the day. It's the most critical part of the day during heat waves and non-heat waves. And this can be used for local authorities to get more attention to people who suffers with hot days, but also have some even in heat wave, they have some places with that we don't have this heat accumulated. We have cold islands, for instance, during these hours. And we made some maps. This is our strong point that we made for the Lisbon municipality. We have the present urban heat island intensity in Lisbon. We can at these areas, and they are most concentrated near the more concentrated areas, more dense areas in Lisbon. And we also have the future scenarios, so we can have this information because the Lisbon municipality gave us where they are going to build and what they are going to build. This information, there won't be, well, some places will have some aggravation during these events, but it's not too much. But we'll have also a projection for the future for this RCP 8.5. So RCP 8.5 is the worst case scenario, is the business as usual, the end of the century. And we have here the areas where we have the greater urban heat island intensity, but also during a heat wave in the afternoon, urban heat island intensity and heat wave. So is the double vulnerability exposed. So we have some locations. We started in 2000. This is one in 2009 that it was published in Landscape and Urban Planning, and now we have new findings here, 2021. So how do we? What did we produce new from the municipality? We have new maps, the roughness lens, the complexity, the volume, because we know that this complexity is very related with the urban intensity. So we have these all these maps. The municipality has these to work with. So they have all the information now that can use in planning, but also they can produce new predictors for urban heat island. We create, well, we had this in the first assessment, 2003, and then in this publication, Orientações Climáticas para o Ordenamento de Lisboa. Now we have this information for our case. This was a new step we made. We prepared this information for Lisbon Authority also with the climate ops, and for each one we design and rearranging these climate ops, we redesign these areas that should be taken in account when the local conditions create new infrastructures. So we have 8 areas with climate guidelines and more than 30 measures that can be condensed in three levels: ventilation paths, the different density areas and green areas. And for each of these areas we have these measures that we proposed, and Lisbon Council will take in account. They make new infrastructures. So this is an example of the monitoring for the ventilation paths in Lisbon. This is an example. In 2005, we have this area with this dynamic limit that we thought it was the area free of wind. In Lisbon, we have especially north and northwest winds. So for us, it's important that the city can be clean from these heat events or urban heat island intensity can be ventilated with good winds from north. In 2020, this limit is progressing to the north. It means that the urban density is increasing, and also can predict, is in agreement with the new findings that we have, that urban heat island is increasing to the north of the city, because of course we don't have as good as we wanted this wind clean the city from these areas. And we also demonstrate how important are the green urban areas to tackle urban changes. So here in the blue, we have a big forest near Lisbon. Is one of our main theme parks that we have in the city. And now we have a model with the areas that need more improvement, also the areas where we have more intense urban Italian intensities. And we came to the conclusion that even a small canopy of trees can decrease 1 degree centigrade in our city. And we also demonstrate the importance of these spaces to prevent mortality. And in this graphic, we have here the normalized difference vegetation. That is an index that is on the biomass quantity of green spaces. And where we can from these graphs is that the greater area they have with this vegetation index, the lower is the relative risk of mortality during bigger temperatures. The areas where NDVI, it means that this vegetation index is lower, so less vegetation, the mortality risk is increasing with the higher temperatures. So this, I'm just finishing now. This will be the new project that we have in Lisbon. This is an international project. It's emotional cities. This is not only related with urban climate, but with cities in general. The project is mapping the cities through the sense of those who make them. And the general idea is to construct a set of information that can relate and allow us to understand how people live in our cities. And one of our partners, we have partners from universities in America and Europe, and the Faculty of Medicine will will make some scanning of the brain of some people, and we will measure the environmental variables to conclude about the relation between our real life and how we feel and our thermal patterns and the thermal patterns. So to conclude, I conclude with 3 questions, as I told you. How many choices do we have to construct new buildings, new way of life? Is this what we all want? On the left, we have a figure from the newspaper, the British newspaper, and they ask imagine if Paris has as many cars as Mumbai, it could be like this, our life. This is important because, of course, this is a utopia, but a bad utopia in these cases. But this remains one very interesting question, that is social justice and spatial justice. How can we get to the Eiffel Tower if the whole tower is surrounded by cars and by lanes of cars? So this prevent people to go to the not increasing the urban pollution, but also increase the injustice, spatial territorial injustice, because people can go to only the rich people can go to the Eiffel Tower and not everyone. But in the Guardian has another Another photograph will be the future. This will be a compact city, but all green city. Kind of choices do we need to tackle urban climate change? The second question, and how can we transform climate services in something useful? I show you what we are doing in Lisbon. Lisbon now has a very good network of stations. We have about 80 stations measuring temperature, humidity, the pollutants, the noise, but how can we transform this in something important and understandable to our citizens? Not only to create the smart cities with Internet of Things and so on, but this is too much information. Too much data is not good information. That's what I want to say. So we must transform in, for instance, in urban climate maps like we did before, in order to get more informative societies. And the third message and conclusion is we must act the local level communities. It means that we must, in our communities, I'm sorry, I'm going again to this project, PS Clima, we talk together and find ourselves, because each city is different from every place. So think global, act local is still in our minds to tackle urban climate changes. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Antonio. It was very, very exciting to follow your presentation, not only because we saw very, very interesting maps and figures, but the arguments based on the life in the city and the comfort in the city is very interesting. But at the end, with your questions, I think we open a debate because by yourself, we can imagine the possibilities of the future in this, not the future, the present, the future in the city. For example, questions related to that image concern Paris, as you propose at the end. What is the sense of the life in the city? Is the place is to pass, is to live? How could you build the city to the present, to the future? Imagine climate change with a growth of cities and an increase of hot in the climate. What challenge we must think, and you put in two very interesting pictures. What way we choose green lives to maintain a certain quality of life in the city, or a city based on the structures to move or to pass? What kind of city? Well, thank you very much for the presentation. You bring us very important arguments and questions at the end. But now we will receive our colleague from Instituto Polis to talk about some experience concerning the city, but in this perspective of law and rights in the city. So I invite Mr. Nelson. Is Nelson with us? Nelson, please. Let me see. I was talking to him. Yes,
yes.
Coming.
Good morning.
Yes. I don't see you.
Can you see
yes.
now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's okay.
Thank you.
Welcome, Nelson.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I will introduce you in our debate. As I think you following us, we had a great presentation. The first was Mr. PK, and the second one was presented, finished now by our colleague Antonio Lopes from Lisbon. Mr. PK is coming from Barcelona. And thank you, Nelson, to be here with us. Nelson Senges is Nelson Soule is a colleague from Instituto Polis from São Paulo, Brazil. I would do just an introduction with a very short CV because he has an interesting profile. Nelson Soule is doctor in state law at Catholic University of São Paulo, where he is teacher in urban law, notably in the subjects concerning rights to the city and human rights. He is coordinator at the area of rights to the city of Instituto Polis in São Paulo, Brazil, coordinator of international relations area of Brazil at Brazilian Institute of Urban Law, member of human rights at the commission of OAB, it means the Brazilian Organization of Law in São Paulo. His central lines of interest are state law, urban law, and human rights. So welcome between us, Mr. Nelson Senge and Mr. Nelson Soule. I pass you the possibility exposition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Francisco Mendonça, for inviting us to join this session from Policy Institute. Like you mentioned, I am working in Policy Institute in charge of the coordination support team. The one international network is the global platform, the Right to the City. Just to understand better, what means this platform. Well, since we have in Brazil the national legislation statute state of the city 20 years ago is the more relevant national legislation in Brazil regarding urban development, urban policy. Now we have one vision to develop the urban policies in your cities with the perspective of the human rights. And we include, we got in this legislation exactly on a vision about the right to the city with two components. One is component important, these visions, is the quality of life, the standards of adequate standards of quality of life in the cities, housing, to the people to have a right to access housing, land, transport, public services, also labor, cultural. So it's more related, what's the means necessities. Basically, we need to have like habitants in the city. It's about the condition of the urban life. And the another is about the governance, a special, to have a democracy in your cities and participatory democracy in your cities, because in Brazil we have these two systems, representative political system and participatory democratic system. So the vision, the right to the city, includes the quality of life in the urban areas in the cities. The other is management of democratic in the cities. So we have this vision now in our legislation, and then we have a possibility to start one perspective to work in the international perspective to recognize this vision, the right to the city, as a human right in the international perspective. We start in the social world forums. He started in Brazil 20 years ago, exactly in Porto Alegre City. Was one forum to, in the same way, parallel of the Economic Global Forum organized by the countries and the private sector every year. And then in this World Social Forum, we start to discuss the perspective, this international view for the cities, the right to the city. And then we elaborate on a charter, world charter about the right to the city. And we start in the international perspective. Also, the UN Habitat starts to organize international forums, no, the Urban Global Forum, and then also we start to bring this discussion for this international level with the organism of UN, and also for other sectors, no, private sector, local governments, no, academics, also for social organizations, usually are engagement in this Urban Global Forum. And 5 years ago, we have the conference, the UN about human sentiments, Habitat 3 in Ecuador. And we have now the new Urban Agenda. And during this process, exactly, we organized this global platform to provide advocacy for different networks with some important components, the vision, the one more citizenship inclusion in the cities, more cities without any kind of discrimination, with more gender equality, with more political participation. The different kind of organizations are in this network, the global platform, the right to the city, and then we work together since the process, the Habitat 3, for to disseminate one vision, the human rights in the city, with the vision, the right to the city, and also the perspective, to implement policies in your countries, in your cities, to take in view the new Urban Agenda, and also the Agenda 2030, in special, the Objective 11 regarding sustainable and inclusive cities. So just to give this background, why we are working in the perspective, the right to the city. So in this moment, we have one process to make a balance here in Brazil regarding this national legislation, Statute of the City. We are making a balance with different process, the public debates, some research, some investigations, how are the stage of the implementation, these guidelines, the principle, and the tools we have in the Statute of the City, in your cities during the last 20 years. He also, for the side of the United Nations, we have this year one process, the balance of the implementation, the new Urban Agenda, is the call, Habitat 3+5. I think it's important to bring this process, political process, for this session, especially regarding the new Urban Agenda. We have last week, one session typewriter with different colleagues from different organizations, institutions organized for UN Habitat, to make one contributions for the report that they are elaborating for the General Secretary of UN. How is the evaluation we have regarding what during these 5 years has some better news, some advances, or also what's the critical points. One critical point is exactly regarding the human rights and the right to the city, because we in the Urban Agenda, the view, no, is exactly one recognition, this perspective, the human rights, to have one important relevance, for the implementation of the policies in the cities to confront, the social inequalities we have in your cities, in your territories. The vision that the right to the city in the new urban agenda, is special, the perspective to have compromises for the countries, for the governments, for the cities, one city without any kind of discrimination. This city with perspective to include more the inhabitants, are in formal or even in legal situation, recognize your conditions to access, the status of the citizenship in the cities. One example very clear is regarding migrants. People are living on the streets, the homeless. People are living in slums because they don't are recognized. Your houses like a formal houses in the cities, and then they don't have recognition about your status of the citizenship inside the institutional sectors, even the local governments, even the national governments. This was one important perspective, we have in the new urban agenda. The another is about the social function of the city. One is one point very relevant. I think the colleagues before just mentioned, we talk about the housing, land, the social function of the land in the cities, what's the role of the planning, also the urban development policies to bring, more perspective, to use the land, to use the perspective, the territory to confront the social inequalities. Especially, we think is very important, like is one goal in the Objective 11, to increase the actions initiative for the urbanization of the informal settlements, to improve the better condition for the people who are living in slums, because unfortunately, the last 10 years, we have news during the last weeks, increasing the population in the world, not only in Brazil, because in Brazil also increasing the population living in slums, in favelas. This is a very, very, very critical point we have to do in our cities. And that this perspective, the social function of the property and the urban lands, combined with the housing issues in the cities, is other very important component of the right to the city, is in the vision of the new urban agenda. The another point is regarding the economy. We cannot talk the perspective to confront the inequality, the social inequality and the territory in our cities if you don't have very clear connections with the urban economy, especially the informal economy we have in our cities. For us, in this vision, the right to the city, the social economy is very strategic. We need to recognize the important role are the informal workers in the cities, also bring more conditions for these informal works, to have conditions to have more security for working in the cities, in this moment of the pandemic, we saw this problem here in the Brazilian cities increase the situation. The people are living in this with the activities in the informal activities in the city. They lose, your low income, and many people are living now in public spaces. It is very terrible, the situation. In the downtown of São Paulo city, for example, there are a lot of campings in different squares, in streets, in the central or historic of São Paulo city, for example. And then this issue regarding the social economy, the recognition, the role of the informal economy, to provide more conditions for these people to have income, to have work, also better regulation regarding the use of the public space, because they usually are working on the streets, the informal workers, is very important to show the connections with the right to the city. Sure, other component, just to give more one connections regarding the view, the components, the right to the city, is the political participation. And in Brazil, we are having one political crisis, very serious political crisis. I think you know very well, in the national government. The attacks related to the democracy in Brazil is every day, unfortunately, and this bring impacts for also the political participation in our cities. It is special now in this moment, the pandemic, became more weak, the possibilities to have political participation in the strategic decisions in our city, because don't have no more presential conditions to have a political participation in different public spaces, like councils or public hearing. This is became very critical and weak during these last 2 years, because we are having this pandemic. One example is here in São Paulo city. We are having a revision of the master plan, for the local governments of São Paulo. Try to make this review since the last year, but for different organizations like Policy Institute, other organizations here in São Paulo, it's impossible. We have a political, a public participation in this process, the revision of the master plan, because you don't have no conditions to have a real dialogue, with the authorities, with the private sector, with other different actors, to discuss the strategies to review the master plan, special to deal with this new reality we are having in our cities, especially in São Paulo, because increase like I mentioned, the situation of the poverty in your city, especially inside the territory, with this lot of people living now in the streets, in campings. So this is very clear, how is the one critical point, the political participation in the case of Brazil. But we know, this is one situation we needed to deal in the other countries, because they are having the same situation now, especially in Europe, and now about the critical situation again, regarding the pandemic in some countries like Germany or other countries, even Portugal. So this is one other point very important regarding, we are taking in special account the right to the city. The other point I would like to bring enough for your reflections is, so why you are discussing, why you are bringing the perspective, the right to the city? No, we already have the human rights recognition in our national constitutions, in our national legislation. No, so why you are talking to have this vision, the right to the city? So for this point, I mentioned two elements. One is the view of the human rights as right to the city. Is the right to the city bring one more perspective, the collective rights, not the individual and traditional rights. And when we bring this perspective, the collective rights for the inhabitants in the cities, also we use one strategy to implement this right to the city to have an integration view of the human rights in the territory of the cities. Because if you use the traditional human rights, we contribute some way for the fragmentation. There is initiatives for health, there are initiatives for education, there are initiatives for social assistance, there are some initiatives for housing, in the neighborhoods, in the informal settlements, for the local governments, but don't have a strategical vision of the integration of the human rights, to modify the reality, in special in the periferia urban areas, in the informal settlements. And then the right to the city, when we bring more this collective perspective, to planning the territory, to implement the human rights, which the components I just mentioned, is one strategy also for we have other kind of the cultural to implement the urban development policies and the social policies in the city. I think this is one strategic point we have with the perspective of the right to the city. Well, the last point I would like to bring, for why you are working with the right to the city, he also make the connections with this global agenda, the new urban agenda, and the objectives, the sustainable development, not only the objective 11, especially the objective 11, is on a vision we bring, for the cities. I saw some colleagues mention about the smart cities, bringing more perspective to explore the technology, to contribute, for the development of the services and the activities for the public authorities, public management of the cities. But we think the other value is important we bring here. We bring one value very relevant in the vision of the right to the city is the city is a common good. Is one way, for some perspective to confront the traditional view. The city is more one space building for the economy, perspective, and then the business became more relevant than the people in the cities, and then we think it bring the view the cities are common good, not only the perspective to explore better the quality, the use of the public space, but to bring on a view to protect one kind of the city wants to have, wants to to build, want to protect, want to maintain. No? The Cities Common Goal is one perspective to have other kind of division, like we have, the environment, one protection, like a goods, it's one goods important to protect, especially in this moment, the climate change. We think we need also to think the cities, one kind of the common goods, but sure is necessary to qualify, what kind of the city we are talking. You are not talking city for to have a speculation of the land. We are not talking about the city without a democracy. We talk one qualify one kind of the city we want, or we are building. We want to modify with some elements, like I mentioned, a city without any kind of discrimination, a city without the inclusion citizenship, a city with equality of gender and race, a city with social function, a city with cultural diversity, a city with quality public space, a city with social economy, with political participation. So we can have this qualification for to have on a view what city wants to have, wants to build, and also to have a perspective, to deal with these two impacts we are having in our cities, the climate change and the pandemic 19. So I think it is some points I would like to bring here, for this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Sold. It was very, very interesting to hear you about this complexity, political complexity in the city, concerning, of course, human rights, law, urban law, and notably these problems concern inclusion, democracy in the city, the participation, the citizen participations in building cities. Very, very interesting. That agreed with the exposition of Mr. Antonio, some very interesting aspects concerning, or to put us in reflection to the city in nowadays, in the future. Thank you very much for your exposition. I think we can develop a little more our debate here, because Antonio started the debate putting three interesting questions at the end of his presentation. But I would like just put some accents or some points of view in these two speeches, these two talks, just proposing you develop a little more, just to complete our section, some reflections concerning, for example, Mr. Nelson, the aspects concerning inclusion. As you presented, your work, our Policy Institute works directly about many cities, but notably about São Paulo city. São Paulo is a reference, like a challenge to think about life in city. Many challenges in São Paulo. What about inclusion, and what about the action from state to drive development of a city? Would you develop a reflection for us about the changes in last decades or 2 decades concerning, for example, inclusion, social inclusion in São Paulo? Just to know a little more about your experience in São Paulo. And of course, to Antonio, just one question to follow the presentation and the debate. What about, could you talk us about the future concerning climate change and thermal comfort in the cities? In your experience, the relationship between scientists, as you, and the municipalities the action, the decision makers are in a good way nowadays to the future concern, for example, the relevant preoccupation about climate change in cities, or about the decision makers, the politicians in the cities where you work or you analyze, are in the good way, or the difference between administration, municipality administration, and science is very separated. So I think with these two questions we could do a debate just to conclude our section this morning. So if Mr. Nelson permit me, I will pass firstly to Antonio to hear his exposition. Please, Antonio.
Thank you, Francisco. I hope I can talk a little bit because I'm hiccups and maybe I have to stop. So about your question is a very interesting. I think they stopped. It's a very fine question, and from my opinion, our policymakers and decision makers and technicians, the Portuguese municipalities, they are very motivated to this topic of climate change in urban climate, in thermal environments in general, because it's not also the urban that is in the game, but also many other aspects of our living. They are very motivated because it's one of the topics most discussed here in our societies, along with COVID. It's COVID and climate change. And because understood that we must do something, and this something must be included in plans. What is missing now? They are very interested also in the main Portuguese cities. They are very interested because European funding are based on climate change, reduction, tackling, and also sustainable development goals. So these two aspects of our livings, general aspects and social aspects, now in Europe are in the topics of the debate. So they are very motivated also because the fundings are around these topics. And yes, we are very close now. I can say that those climates that we produce and are presented, they are in the system of the municipality of, for instance, to all the technicians can use for their planning, all the departments, because Lisbon is a huge city. Not all the Lisbon metropolitan area, but the Lisbon city has many departments, and all of them has access to this information if they want to use it. It's not the one thing is the last step is to make it mandatory, because in the field we still see many infrastructures that are connected not according these principles of urban climate and thermal climate and climate justice, because they are too dense, they are too expensive, they are against the guidelines that we produced in all Europe and in the world. So yes, they are motivated, they are very motivated. Yes, we need funding, and these are the main topics to get the funding. But sometimes we continue to allow to make parts of the city not in agreement with guidelines.
Okay, thank you very much. This question interests me a lot because in the countries, in not developed countries, as Brazil, for example, is we find a very deep lack between municipality administration and the challenges posed by climate change and scientists. Happily in Portugal, you're in a good way to elect these 2 points of view, these 2 kind of actions concerning development of cities. It means it's necessary to integrate the scientists' position, scientists' vision, and administration, municipalities' administration. And I follow your work with. It's very interesting because I think it's a very good example to relate academy researchers and political makers. Thank you, Antonio. To your
sorry, Francis, just to say something.
Yeah.
Can I just conclude? It's very important. Yesterday I was in Coimbra with a meeting of young geographer studies students, and it's just to point out that our vision, as geographers, are very important. I should remember that we made an effort with several world societies of geography to COP26 to say that geography matters. In general, it was like this, but it's very important to have the territorial view, not only the global view, but the territorial view, and to understand that territories are very different. We cannot treat a dense area or a bottom of a valley or a green forest as the same way. We must distinguish these. Geographers are very important and very they have very scientific knowledge about that.
Yeah, completely accord with you, notably because we must cartography, we must put in maps and documents the influence or the reflection in the small scales. It means, as we talk about climate change in the world, of course, it's a process in the global scale, but it manifests in space, in territories, in local scales. We must do the cartography because vulnerability show us the difference between the impacts of this changing.
Yes.
And we must do this in detail. So thank you very much for this information, and we will encourage the geographers to work hard in this way. Thank you, Antonio. I will pass to Nelson Soli to talk about this question I proposed related to the inclusion and the political situation in cities like, for example, Brazil, São Paulo. Please, Nelson.
I think now in Brazil, now we are in terrible situation for the social perspective. There's some kind of the action from the government to change the reality. We have more than 40 million people in employment. We increase the people in the line of the poverty again. We have 1 million people with the insecurity, food again, hunger. So the situation in Brazil is terrible. Regarding the São Paulo city, but it's an example for the other cities or even in other countries. I think to have a change or to have a social, some kind of the inclusion for the vulnerable groups or people are living the social inequality. The importance, the experience, I can talk here, is very relevant to the organization of this group, the political organization of this group, for to have this changing in our reality. One example very clear, in Brazil, here in São Paulo, but also in different cities in Brazil, we have more for 40 years, popular movements which demand the housing policies, housing programs. We have a lot of the housing movements, popular housing movements in different cities of Brazil. In São Paulo, we have a lot of the housing popular movements during the last 40 years, so since the decade of 18, the last century. So the Spanish, these groups go for since occupy lands for to build housing projects, occupy buildings in the center of the São Paulo, also for to reform this building for housing, social housings, and then also they got many projects, social projects with the support the national fundings or state fundings, or even in case of Brazil, we have a local fund of housing, municipal funding for to building the social projects of housing. And we have a lot of experience here in São Paulo. But the main issue is they are organized. They have a strong organization in these social groups to demand, to confront in some ways the possibility to have these projects, to have these conditions to access social housing. This could be one very important example because during the last years, in the perspective more institutional, we have in São Paulo one municipal council of housing, municipality council of housing, and in this municipality council of housing, they discuss, they decide how to use this funding, this local funding of social housing. And the one more important issue I want to remark is they have elections to have representative in the neighborhoods for the social groups, for the social movements. This, I think, one good experience for to combine participatory democracy, social inclusion in the projects, but also social inclusion in the main street, the main space for to have definitions about the housing policies in the city of São Paulo. The other example is about the garbage pickers, collectors. Also, a long time they are organized in São Paulo, and then they have now recognition in the national legislation, like a collector service of garbage. That is this recognition in one national legislation. And also in the local legislation, they are not much illegal. They can do these services in the legal perspective, also to have recognition of the local administration to provide this collect garbages in the city. It's not more only in the perspective the informal or illegal services for these collect pickers. They are exactly one way for to have the social inclusion. The other more recent, I just wanted to mention, but I think it's important. In Brazil, we have a slavery system. The majority of population are Black, in Brazil. And in São Paulo, some cultural groups of Black people started to mapping the route of the Black people are living in São Paulo, historic living, also are public space where some historic reality of these people, like where the market for Black slavers, where is the space for to punish the Black people on the streets. They started to have these Black roads in São Paulo for like 3 years ago. One example, one neighborhood very famous in São Paulo cities is Liberdade neighborhood, where is traditional and more technology for the people where Asian people live, you know, Japanese, Korean, Chinese is one cultural and um, uh, neighborhood for the Asian people. Very here in São Paulo, no, in the touristic points. But this Liberty neighborhood, the name Liberty is not because of the Asian people, it's because the black people, because it was one neighborhood where the concentration historic or the living the black population is in this neighborhood in São Paulo. And now, no, the local municipality are recognizing this root also, no, like a formal root of the story of the black people in São Paulo, no, and then there is one formality these places to recognize the memorial and the identity of the black people in São Paulo city. So I just mentioned these initiatives because in these three different initiatives became from the groups, no? And then this group could be dialogue, could be making actions, making strong initiatives with the authorities to recognition, no, of your demands, your needs, and your rights, and your proposals. No, so I think São Paulo have a good experience, but it's not initiative became from the local governments, local authorities. Even when they have some social inclusion policies in São Paulo, is because there is a story from the social groups, no, in our organization, in the strong, in different perspective to modify your reality, especially your social reality here in São Paulo City.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nelson, for this consideration, these aspects concerning that complicated political situations to live in São Paulo, notably persons or social groups that called in Brazil persons or communities that are in the difficulty, social difficulty to live in the cities, like poor, ethnic situations. Thank you very much. We will conclude our section this morning. I will thank you again, your speech here, your talks. It was very, very interesting to hear you know the examples, considerations that you do about the smart cities, sustainable cities, etc. And Federal University of Paraná, thank you again. Our international agency, thank you to be here with us. And I pass you the word just to your conclusion and to say the last words to conclude our session. Mr. Antonio, please, just to finish. Thank you again, and your word, please. Professor Antonio. Antonio, please, audio.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you again, Francisco, and all. It was a pleasant morning with the colleagues and the discussion. It's very important that we continue to discuss these questions about climate change and sustainability, because this is our future, but also the future of our kids. And we must remember that climate change is not something of the future, it's something that is occurring in the last 50 years. And we must remember this. And this is going worse, and we must take care of these ones, but also we must build cities that can be prepared to and less vulnerable to climate change. Is my message.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Nelson, Professor Nelson.
thank you for to have this opportunity, to be in your session. I just go to put here in the chat, the link of the website of the global platform, the Right to the City. We have already some thematic papers to have a better understanding the meaning, the components, the vision, the right to the city, connect with exactly new urban agenda and the Agenda 2030. Even we have two special thematic papers, one about right to the city and climate change, and the other is about the right to the city in the pandemic. And if you can access in this website, I share it with Dr. Francisco. I think he can share with you this link, and there is this thematic paper. I think it will be useful for who wants to better understand this perspective, the vision, the right to the city is a common goal, is exactly what the last thematic paper we just include in the website.
Okay, thank you again, Professor Nelson. I remember you, all this emission is recorded. We will diffuse it in large media as possible, of course, scientific media, to around the world. We will do a final treatment to have a very good diffusion. And I thank you again to be here with us. We had very important talks from last Wednesday to today. We have 5 great meetings concerning sustainable citizen communities from around the world, colleagues from Portugal, Spain, United States, Chile, Argentina, Brazil. And it was very, very interesting to know about the conceptions, examples, and very important themes to think about cities nowadays and things to the future we are building to the new society, to the new time, to the next time, to the future. So thank you again. I conclude to say thank you again, and wish you a very, very nice afternoon for Brazilian, and of course to our colleague Antonio, maybe end of afternoon, beginning of evening. So thank you all. Bye-bye. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.